The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast, back to record a classic Why Do the Phoenix Suns Suck episode. Sam, how you doing?
We're due for at least one a month, or definitely one a season. I'll be honest, man, I've been better. Here's the deal. It's finals week for me. For those who don't know, I'm currently pursuing a master's program, and shout out to any other students out there who are working through their finals at this point in time just before the holidays, and that meant that this weekend I did not get to watch the vast majority of the two Suns losses live because I had other stuff going on. But of course, because I am diligent about what we do here at the podcast, I did watch those games in totality. Yeah. It just sucks, man. It's nothing new. I used to do it before when I had a normal job too. Watching a game on replay.
Yeah.
When you know the outcome, and more specifically with this
when
team,
it's a loss, yeah.
When you know that the blown lead is coming, you know. in the case of Miami, it was the third quarter. In the case of Orlando, it was the fourth quarter, but the outcome was the same. You know that it's coming. You know that a team with substantially less talent than them is just going to outwork them. Especially the case with Orlando, man. I really like the Orlando Magic, so I was actually kind of gutted for them when I saw that Franz Wagner is out for the next 4 weeks with a strained oblique.
Both Franz and Paolo on your fantasy team?
On my fantasy team, yeah.
That's brutal, man.
We don't want to talk about that because the fantasy team's not doing too hot all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But I was gutted. First reaction when Franz went down, gutted for him and the Magic and my fantasy team. But second reaction was, they should take. It doesn't matter that it's the second night of a back-to-back. They should take care of business, right? We're going to be playing against Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs and whatever, and they did not take care of business, even against that team. And so, just venting my frustrations a little bit. I know everyone's frustrated, but I had to watch those games when I already knew what was coming, and it was not fun.
Yeah, it's one of the hard. It's hard. Look, we watch every game. Ultimately, we watch every single game. And we have truthfully, as a fan, I think I have for probably 10 plus years now. But for the podcast, without a doubt, every single one, every time. If we miss a game, we go back and watch it. And sometimes that can be pretty brutal. Now, 3 losses in a row. Now, these last 3 games, the New Orleans Pelicans, who have, I think, 5 wins total on the season. Brandon Ingram comes back, plays 1 game, has 1 incredible quarter against the Suns, and then is injured again, goes back into the bench, and of course that was the game against the Suns where he kind of carried them the only quarter that was necessary in order to beat the Suns. I think that was the game where the Suns gave up 45 points in that third quarter against a terrible team. The Miami Heat, at Miami, at Orlando, these are all road games, were the other 2 losses for the Suns. And I think the last 2 in particular against the Heat and the Magic were, I think, frustrating to me because the role players showed up.
Yeah.
They showed up in those games. There were games where, Devin Booker's going to get blitzed in these games, maybe less so when Bradley Beal plays, but even in those games, he's going to get blitzed. And if the guys don't make shots, the other guys around them don't make shots in those games, then they're going to lose. That's just how it is. Because, what you hope for is that they make a ton of shots early in the game and that they stop doubling Devin Booker. He frees himself up to score some more points in those games, and then they find a way to win in those games, right?
And that's sort of what Eric Spoelstra is thinking, when he's drawing up his strategy in the first place, right? He's thinking, okay, we have a strong chance here. If we're going to send these blitzes, these traps at Devin Booker, he's going to make the right read. He's an unselfish player, whatever. They're thinking that Royce O'Neal and Ryan Dunn, when he's healthy, and whatever role players are going to shoot 30%, and they're going to have an easy win that way.
Make them beat you. Yeah, right. Basically, right? Make Royce O'Neal beat us.
The fact that in some of these games, though, the Suns' offense is actually quite vibrant and they're shooting 45, near 50% from deep in these games, and they're still losing, is insane. It's embarrassing at a certain point because it means we have to talk about their defense and everything that's going wrong on the defensive end.
Yeah.
But the fact that that's been the case, I mean, like, Tyus Jones has been really good in this stretch without Kevin Durant.
Offensively, yeah.
That's I mean, that's what I mean, right? So
yeah,
but he's making shots. Royce is making shots. Even Grayson Allen, who we've been complaining about all season long, Grayson Allen in his last 5 games, 52% from deep, 95% from the free throw line, 14 points, 4.5 assists per game.
He's been good. He stepped up the last 2 games.
The role players are actually playing
and
well.
Royce O'Neal, set a new career high. He's just a guy who keeps playing well for the Suns. And when he's bad offensively, he's pretty bad. He's going to have the games where he's 1 for 7 or whatever. But that was not these games. That was not these 2 most recent losses. At the very least, he was really good against Miami, and he was awesome against Orlando. The story of this team right now is how they play without Kevin Durant. Because look, Kevin Durant is, first of all, the oldest player on the team. We started our last podcast celebrating the fact that he was back. He immediately rolls his ankle in the next game, and then he's out after that. And there's no guarantee he's going to play a lot. He did last year. It was kind of a miracle that he played a lot last year. This is a guy who's post Achilles tear, has had major injuries throughout his career, and he's still playing at this late of an age. The injuries that he's had this season are, knock on wood, like not terrible injuries. They've just been ankle rolls mostly, or a calf strain. But those will keep him out some games. We're not sure when he's going to be back. It could be when they're back off this road trip is when I had to guess, but we don't really know. But 1-9 without him, 2 losses to the Kings, where if you just watch those Kings games, you think, wow, this team must be awesome. They're not. The Kings are bad. They're not good this year. The Suns lost to a bad team in those games. 2 losses to Orlando. One of them, no Paolo. One of them, no Paolo and Franz. That's not good to lose to that team in those cases. They should have won, honestly, both of those. One of them, to be fair, didn't have Bradley Beal, but the other one did. And then 1 loss to New Orleans, who is, possibly the worst team in the NBA. They're making a case.
Wizards.
Okay, the Wizards are like far and away the worst team, and we'll see if the Suns beat them. Like when we get there, I think that's coming up.
I think it is too. Yeah,
we'll find out if the Suns can actually win that game. But right now, the New Orleans Pelicans, and to be fair, it wasn't the same team that is the worst team in the NBA. They got some of their guys back in that game, and those guys played well. But they should still beat the New Orleans Pelicans. That team is not good. And it's just, when you put it all together and you look at what's happening here, it's hard not to start pointing fingers and figuring out who's to blame. And, we're going to kind of go through that right now because, look, we have to have a conversation of what's happening here. I think it starts the conversation, at least right now. It starts with Devin Booker. I'm curious where you stand on this, but let's just go over some of the basics of this.
Yeah,
41% from the field in games without KD, 32% from 3 in those games. Averaging 25 points whether KD plays or not. And when KD plays, 25 points is probably enough.
25 points as the primary option these days that's the new 16 points. Inflation has come
25
for you,
years
Book.
Ago, yeah. Right,
Seating you up. I just want to point out real quick before I do have things to say about Book. But I looked it up. Our first game against Washington this season is January 16th. I will note that is before the trade deadline. And if we lose that game, I know we're feeling like we're reeling right now, and we're about to play some bad teams: Utah, Portland, Detroit, all coming up in the next week. But man, if we lose to Washington, I think anything's on the table. Like that's the type of team this year where if you lose to that team and it's before the trade deadline.
I think you could. I mean, I hate to say it, but if you start losing a lot of games, you could make the case that why would KD want to stick around?
Well, I've already seen, I look, I don't think the front office is entertaining anything right now.
No, and KD's been incredible, though. And it's,
the fan base is certainly entertaining things right now because after last game was the first game where I saw the KD trade screenshots start appearing on Twitter for the first time this season. Not because anyone thinks KD has been bad, just because it's like, how do you honor him? at this point in his career.
Get him out of here for his sake, right? Yeah.
Well, and for our sake, right? Like get some picks back or young players or whatever. Again,
if it's going to be bad, it's at least be bad in a way
I'm not
that you could
seriously
benefit from it.
entertaining any of that right now. I'm just saying it for the transparency of like this is how you know we're in a dark place, because that's the first time all season that I've seen fans going there.
It's up to the reason I put it the way I put it is because it's entirely up to Kevin Durant. Look, I'm sorry, we're 10 minutes into this podcast. We're already talking about trading Kevin Durant, which we don't want to do. He's by far the best player on the team this year, and far and away one of the best players in the NBA. And the difference he makes on the offensive and defensive end is so dramatic and stands out so dramatically. And I think there's reasons for that beyond him just being great, which we're going to get into in this episode. But first, let's talk about Devin Booker, because I think it's fair. I think he's not played up to his standards this year from my eyes. And, it's like statistics are one thing, but like just watching him play, I think there are times where he's locked in and he's focused, and there are times where that's just drifting away from him entirely. I think maybe there's some elements of him struggling with this new system, especially when his three-point shot kind of disappears from him. And I do think there has been some times where he doesn't look physically right. He was icing his forearm in the last, 2 games ago, and then had it wrapped against, I think it was New Orleans. And it just doesn't, I don't know, he just doesn't quite look right from what we're used to seeing from him.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fans that are like concerned that he's done or something at this point. I'm nowhere near that. I think that we're going to see a stretch from Devin Booker where he looks like himself, but we haven't really seen him string together. There's a few games, of course, here and there, but we haven't seen him string together a stretch of games where you could really feel confident about how he's played.
That's sort of the thing, right? Like the 44-point game against Minnesota wasn't too long ago. It was a couple weeks back. So he has these individual games this season, but you're exactly right. He hasn't had a single 5-game stretch where he's just on a heater. And he looks to me like a guy who is at this point where, he doesn't really turn over the ball much, maybe a little bit more in the last few games, but we've largely praised him for his playmaking this season and kind of in this stage of his career about being able to read defenses better than he ever has before, being incredibly unselfish, and increasingly just a little bit held back by the physicality that other teams impose on him, right? He looks like a guy who's nursing a lot of little minor injuries and maybe has a lot of miles on his body that he didn't have 3 or 4 years ago, to be quite honest. He right now, and I will give him credit for a couple things. One, the three-point shooting has evaded him. He's down to 33.5% on the year, and yet he is still firing. Right, because the entire criticism I've always placed on Booker in prior seasons was, well, I believe that he has to take that shot because it's for the benefit of the spacing of all the other players around him. It's for Kevin Durant's benefit if he's taking that shot. And he's gone out there and he's still taking a career-high three-point attempt rate. And, sometimes he hits and sometimes he misses. I believe still in my heart of hearts that number is going to stabilize over time and that he needs to trust the process, and so far he is. He's also done a very good job at trying to put pressure on the rim, getting to the free throw line, making free throws. He's at 90% on the season when he is there. But his actual finishing numbers, when he doesn't get the whistle, the physicality overwhelms him more often, it seems. The numbers, the percentages at the rim are down, which coupled with the three-point shooting slide, it's like he needs to either be elite at one thing or the other. And this applies to Beal too, by the way. I know we don't have the same expectations of Brad, but it's like both of these guys, when KD is out, you either need to be the elite rim pressure, put pressure on the rim, get those driving lanes, open stuff up for everyone else, or you need to be sharpshooters. And right now, both guys are neither of those things, which is just really, really frustrating in terms of how can we talk about, getting this team to have a thriving offense. Without KD, it just increasingly feels like a really difficult task.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking about, by the way, I just looked at Bradley Beal's stats. Hasn't played a ton of games without KD so far this year, but the overall shooting splits are not terrible. 31% from three, so that's like a problem, but overall 49% from the field, averaging 21.8 points per game. in those games, and I actually, the fact that I didn't even look those up before we had this conversation, I think is a sign of how that third guy can sometimes skate without criticism, because you're always going to point it up towards the top a little bit more. You know, Kevin Durant and last year, I think, got a lot of flack from even guys like us, and Devin Booker, I think this year getting it either, you know, now on this podcast or online during the games, and, you know, Bradley Beal maybe avoiding some of that because expectations are so much less for him.
They both deserve it, to be clear.
Well, I mean, yes, exactly.
Book deserves it because, frankly, we talked about his play sliding a little bit last year, but like there's no comparison from last year to this year. It feels like a much greater regression just so far with the way he's played. But then Beal also deserves it.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beal, sure. I mean, maybe it's not everything, but also we're going to get to the defense in a minute, and the defensive numbers with him on the floor are really bad. Mm-hmm. Beal, you just have to look at a game like Orlando the other day. How many turnovers did Brad have in the fourth quarter? Did he have 3 in a row at one point when they were trying to get back in the game, after they had already blown the lead?
Having Minnesota playoff flashbacks, yeah.
Yes, his handle is so shaky at times when you just need him to set up the offense, and I understand. That's not his role anymore. Yes, Tyus is supposed to be doing that for 90% of the game or whatever. But if it's the fourth quarter,
questions about that too. With Tyus, I'm sorry, with Brad too. If you're constantly coming back from injury too, there's like a rhythm thing that's not there too. I think with his handles, because it's not like he was like that when he had longer stretches of playing last year. The handles weren't that bad. He does still get some pretty dumb turnovers even when he's fully healthy. But I think there's some in the last few games where it's just like, okay, physically he doesn't look right because those are some weird turnovers. And maybe that's an aging thing, and that's just who he is, you know, who he will be as he gets older. But I guess we'll have a chance to find out this year. But, you know, Tyus starts. Is there a problem with? Do you think that the benefits to Tyus starting right now outweigh the fact that you're giving up so much size by playing him with both Devin Booker and Bradley Beal?
Okay, and so you want to talk about that in relation to the defense?
Not even just defensively. We're talking about right. They're gonna put the small, like when Devin Booker's at the point guard, there will be times where the smallest player on the court is guarding him. You know, just because of the way certain teams are constructed, that's who they're going to trust taking that matchup from him. Now, of course, there's still going to be turnover issues. There's going to be potential problems with the team in that way, although I wonder if those are mitigated, because he's having his best playmaking season. I wonder if those are mitigated by the fact that they're playing a much better offensive system so far this year when fully healthy, because of what Bud has instilled in them, their willingness to shoot threes, their willingness to run a little bit more in transition, if they could ever get turnovers, which they're not getting right now. So I wonder, I guess, you know, in the way that you're talking about it, the size and the physicality that sort of overwhelmed Devin Booker at times this year, we talked, you know, as a joke, of course, in some ways, about him being the best small forward, but maybe he's not. He's playing small forward. Maybe he's not one. You know, I guess you could solve that in a few different ways. First of all, we're going to talk about the roster. They don't have enough size on the roster at all right now.
Yeah,
so there's no real solution for it. But Tyus Jones coming off the bench, Bradley Beal coming off the bench, you know, finding ways to be bigger in that starting lineup, put bigger guys around Devin Booker. Could that help him in any way? I guess this is not something I fully thought of. It's just something I thought of while you were talking now. So.
No, I understand. And like, you're right. I mean, these are the conversations I'm sure Bud is having amongst his staff, right? Like, what can they do internally to fix this? I don't think Tyus... I don't think punishing Tyus for this mess.
Yeah, but what about when KD's not playing? I guess is the question.
No,
right?
Okay, that's fine,
yeah.
and we'll address that in a second. I just want to point out, so like Tyus, and we understand his limitations, definitely. Like he's small. His assist turnover ratio has been exactly as advertised.
Yeah.
When he handles the ball, you know, it's
doesn't
been
turn it over. Yeah.
For whatever you can say about the Suns' offense this year, you know, if to quote a friend of mine, Mike Budenholzer, play fast, they're not doing that.
Yeah.
Play random, they might be doing that.
And maybe sometimes to their detriment, yeah.
I'm not
It
sure.
seems like they're playing random on defense sometimes.
Play together. Play together. This is the important one. I think they are doing that. I think they largely are. Like, you see it in the way, yes, there are third quarters and fourth quarters collapses and whatever, but like, we got Tyus and Monte because we want to fix the assist to turnover ratio. They have largely fixed that. They are no longer in the bottom echelon, the lower echelon of teams when it comes to turnovers. And they're, in fact, in the upper echelon of teams when it comes to assists. Very high number of their field goal attempts or field goals made are assisted in a lot of these games. That's a Tyus stat. Another Tyus stat, he's top 10 in the league in corner three-point attempt volume right now, and he's making 49% of them, which, if Ryan Dunn could do that, then great. Ryan Dunn gets those minutes. But you know what? He can't. So it helps to have a guy who has been as elite. I mean, Tyus is shooting better in the corner right now and is taking more of those shots, Mike, than Royce, than Grayson. He's doing a better job of it, frankly, than any of these much larger role players we have on the team.
Sometimes full sprinting into the corners and shooting in transition from that corner in a way that I didn't know he had that in him.
And so I don't think you can punish Tyus. Now, at the same time, here's the facts. Here's the stats. When Book, Tyus, and Beal play together, they have a minus 12 net rating. They have a defensive rating of 126. I just looked these numbers up today. Here's another stat, though, which is when just Tyus plays, without Booker or Beal, they have a plus 12.5 net rating. Their defensive rating is actually quite good.
But it's probably not very often.
It's 80 minutes or something. I'd have to go back and look at it. Like, we're at a point in the season where we can start to bring these numbers up, and there's a lot of noise still. There's statistical whatever.
Well, because of the injuries,
my point just being, the problems right now are not because of any one thing, and you'll go crazy if you're trying to convince yourself that it's like just one thing. There's too many variables for that. There are lineups where Tyus plays and the defense looks good, and there are also lineups where he plays and you have to play Devin Booker at small forward, and they have a defensive rating of 126, and they are atrocious and pathetic and embarrassing and every other pejorative term you want to throw at them, right? So it's just like the Booker Beal minutes last year were positive. They weren't highly positive, but they were a +3 net rating when Booker and Beal shared the floor last year. This year, I just posted on Twitter today, -19 when Booker and Beal. Like, what happened? Is that scientific? Did something happen to make them suck so much when those two shooting guards play together? Or do we have to just like cling on to this hope that they're going to regress back out of it? Because there are things about this team right now that obviously, like, I watch them sometimes and they're lethargic and I don't like the energy and I don't like the process. But there's more to it than that. There are like games right now where I watch them and I just don't understand how they can suck this much without Kevin Durant. It doesn't make sense unless you have like an easy answer for me.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Handpicked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
There's a couple of places I want to go with that, because I think talking about them being lethargic, talking about them being worse than maybe they should be, like lethargic, is that a leadership problem? Worse than they should be, is that a Bud problem? And we can address both of those things now. But first, I want to just talk about the defense a little bit more. And as a comparison to the offense without Kevin Durant, because I think we have to have these conversations. with the caveat of without Kevin Durant, what are the problems here? Defensively, with Brad and Devin Booker on the floor, so just looking at lineups where those guys are currently playing, with Nurkic, so Brad, Book, and Nurkic, the defensive rating currently without Kevin Durant is 134 in those lineups.
How many minutes is that? Do you know?
I don't have it in front of me. It's enough
is it like
to. It's
more
enough
than 50
to,
or something.
Yeah, it's enough to draw some. But even without Nurkic, because Nurkic has missed some time when they're playing here, 129.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's awful. It's awful. And I'll say this too, just to add some more context to that. Without Kevin Durant, they're scoring 110 points per game. Now that's not a lot, right? They're not at the top of the league here, but that's 19th. Like if that was on the season, that would be 19th in the NBA. They're not at the bottom of this list. Offensively, there are issues, but like defensively, it's not even close. They're down at the bottom when those guys are currently playing defensively. But like 19th, 110 per game, like that's more than the Spurs, who are not great, but like they're pretty good so far. That's more than the Clippers, who have a better record than the Suns. It's more than the Timberwolves.
Yeah, and to
like,
be clear,
you
you're
can
saying
win games.
That's just in the games without Kevin Durant.
Yes,
you're saying.
that's just well with KD they're 11th, right? So they're not that much higher at 114.7. So it's like 4 points per game more, which is like that in the NBA that's actually a lot.
We can have
more.
the conversation too that even when Kevin Durant is playing and all three of them are together, the Suns still don't look elite. That's a different conversation. The conversation we're having right now is just why without Kevin Durant do they look borderline worst in the league when they should be at least treading water.
Are they worse than the 76ers without KD? I think they are. Like they right now they are worse than the 76ers.
Yeah.
Without Embiid. Then and that's pretty bad because that team has been awful in the games that Embiid has not played. Now, defensively, why are they so bad? Now, I think that size and length are right now, I think if you had to identify, now you talked about one thing that could fix all of these things. It's not that. But if you had to really, the entire NBA over the last few years has moved back towards size and length. The combination of size, length, and skill
that's the kicker.
The entire NBA has moved towards that over the Suns have one player that has all three of those things.
Who? KD?
KD.
Yeah.
Like they literally have one player that has size, length, and skill. Currently, they have a little bit of size, right? They have Nurkic, they have Plumlee, they have Bol. They have some length, right? They got Bol. Those guys are not skilled. They're not skilled players.
Dunn has size and length, but no skill.
No skill. Yeah.
Oso has.
He's probably the combination of a guy that has the most of that, but not a ton of length.
He's got a little bit of length, actually. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was going to say he doesn't have size. But he has skill. He has smarts. What do you think? This is just such a dumb thing.
But he can't shoot, too, and that's a skill, too.
Do you want Moses Brown? Did you notice Moses Brown got waived by the Pacers today? He's played... Let me just give my short pitch because we talked about the Suns having an open roster spot. Okay. He's not good. He's played for 6 teams, I think, in 6 seasons of his NBA career, mostly as a bench warmer, not playing a ton of minutes. But he is 7'3" and 255 pounds. What are our thoughts?
Sure.
Should they just go pluck a guy like that off the waiver wire and just plug them in and see? Because, you're right.
It's just money. At this point, it's just money.
And not really any, it would be a minimum contract. But, I
don't understand how they could... Honestly, I think it's a valid criticism at this point of the season to say, how could you have this complete lack of size, length, and skill combination, one of the hardest things to find, but size, just size alone, this complete lack of size, and sit here on this team with current injuries and sit here with an open roster spot? It doesn't make sense. I understand criticizing them for this offseason. They did a lot of good things in the offseason. But there are still holes in this roster, and they have a current open roster spot. I'm not going to say there's a guy out there that would fix these problems. But taking a swing on one right now, just to give it a try, how could you not do that?
Well, I would say either you'd have to be dumb to not try, or that December 15th is coming up and you have your eyes on something else, right?
We're going to talk about that.
So
I have a list
maybe
of
read the
guys
tea leaves there a little bit. But
okay, so this is all to say, look, size, length, and skill, the combination of those three things. Do the Suns have any way of getting those things? No. Can they get a combination of two of those things? Ideally, yeah, because look, the lack of size and length alone, if you just have some of those guys that can improve your defense, I do think they have enough offense with the guys they have on this team that if they actually got some stops, first of all, that offensive rating would go up because they would occasionally have actual turnovers that they could run off of. Because right now they're not generating
got some
any.
stops and push on those stops.
Push on those stops, yes, yeah. and actually maybe get some offensive rebounds, for example. Like change the possession battle a little bit. Nurkic would have helped in the last two games. I hate to say it. After how we killed him on the last episode, he would have helped. They got killed on the rebounds.
I'm not convinced of that. I don't know. I mean, size is just kind of the flavor of the week for us. It's the reason we lost these games in the last week. But our center play has still been really bad all season long. And by the way, that's not me letting Mason off the hook either. Mason had a pretty bad week.
He got outplayed in every game he played in, and look, he's a backup center, so that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
so just more to the point of like, yeah, this team can still be really good, but like they have multiple super pressing issues, and it's not just going to be like a single Band-Aid fixing everything.
45 points put on them by the New Orleans Pelicans in a single quarter. And Royce O'Neal is out there just getting shot over. Because he's the one guy that's going to get in there and fight and battle. But he's 6'4", he's 6'5", or whatever
or Josh
he is.
Okogie, but he's also 6'4". And
then if you need offense, you got to put Grayson in. You got to leave Royce in. You got to leave Devin Booker in. You got to play Tyus. You got to play Brad. And those guys are all 6'5" and under.
We should also say, like, maybe if Ryan Dunn was actually available in the last two games, like, do they swing one of the games and maybe we're having a slightly different discussion? It's possible. It
wouldn't be that different, though. The fact that you need somebody that bad, and look, we talked about this before the season with Kellen Olson. We talked about how important Ryan Dunn was going to be and how that's actually kind of concerning. And we're seeing that come to fruition right now. We've had a lot of conversations about Dorian Finney-Smith over this podcast, but like I have never really watched a set of games where I thought we need him more than the last few games. You know what I mean? Dear God, just give us anyone that's over 6'5" that can shoot.
I know it's beating a dead horse, but like I would do fairly unspeakable things for Toumani Camara on this team right now, right? It's like that.
Yes,
that is the sort of player that we're missing. Unfortunately, and we gave up in that trade.
And they clearly knew, right? They wanted him, and they tried to draft him again in Ryan Dunn, basically. And to be frank, we're at a point where Toumani Camara still might have a higher ceiling. He's been that good on Portland, one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA this year by the numbers. Kind of crazy. But yeah, I don't know. The thing is about this, and I think this is where we can talk about a little bit of the blame conversation. We can shift it over to, is this Bud's fault or is this a leadership problem? Because I do think it's not just to me that, because there's no solution for this, I think. Because we could say playing bowl, that would help a lot. They tried it. It looked bad. It didn't work. Now you can try it some more, and maybe Bowl will find ways to do it.
I don't think it looks like irredeemably bad, but
there's reasons to still try it, right? Because when you're losing, you got to try other things. So there's definitely reasons, but there was nothing in there where I thought, okay, this works. I just thought, okay, cool, they're trying this, and Bowl just looked out of sorts. He couldn't make up for what they needed defensively. Maybe it's a matchup thing. Maybe they find ways to do it better in the future. But I could see why they're not playing Bowl based on. Man, and when you turn down that corner 3 too, I'm like, what are you doing, Bowl? Just shoot the 3. There's just really no solution for this current problem the Suns have without making changes to the roster. But I still think there are times where their focus is just completely lost. Where to me, they should have won some of these last few games. The 3 losses in a row, at least 1 or 2 of them, I think they should have won.
Yeah.
Like the New Orleans game, that should have been a victory.
They could benefit from, and again, I don't know if this is something that you have to go out and get because now we're just adding more items to our Christmas wish list. But like they have a lot of this has always been the James Jones thing, right? A lot of really smart role players with no confidence. And, like Grayson, if he was just a little bit better at attacking the rim or just firing away, just like taking dumb shots occasionally. Royce, that applies to him too. I mean, you see Josh Okogie do this sometimes, right? But it's like, when other guys are getting doubled, when the stars are seeing those doubles, and it applies on both ends. It's an offensive thing, but it's also a defensive thing. Applying an extra level of force or making the other team feel a level of physicality that they are constantly applying to the Suns, but only that equation only ever seems to go one way. And to transition us a little bit into...
You're back on the Dennis Schroeder train now.
I don't know. I mean, I guess. Maybe just a dumb player. Like a stupid player would do something for this team.
Well, he's pretty good. I'm going to keep making the case that Schroeder's actually kind of good now. I think also, the German team fixed him.
The reason I don't think it's Bud's fault, though, because I know you want to have that conversation, like with the defense, I watch Bud. He knows to try different things. We've noted the fact that he's trying different things, and it's like, okay, so let me pull up the stats real quick because I have them. The Suns right now are 21st in defensive rating. Mm-hmm. They're 23rd in steals. They're 19th in blocks. Those numbers are even worse when KD doesn't play, right? But it's what you're talking about. They don't apply pressure on other teams. Their point of attack defense, outside of a couple guys like Josh Okogie who plays in spurts, or Ryan Dunn when he's available, but their point of attack defense is largely non-existent. That goes for Tyus, it goes for Book, it goes for Beal. They're giving up easy driving lanes. Their centers aren't doing well. Nurkic isn't a rim protector. Oso's too small. Mason has a couple of games here or there, but honestly, yeah, he's better than Drew Eubanks. That's all I can say for Mason this season. And yet, Bud will be like, okay, next 3 possessions, we're going to blitz. Mason Plumlee, go out and blitz. And it's the fact of how small the other 3 guys are behind them. If Mason's going up to play high, now you've got 3 6'4" guys having to guard a 4-on-3 on the backside. And like, you try and apply that extra level of force, that extra level of pressure, and it kind of just feels like with the personnel, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. So I don't know what Bud is supposed to do about that.
Yeah, I agree
he could play conservative and they're small. He can play aggressive and they're still small. And I don't know what other levers he has, really.
By the way, Orlando's so good at doing what you're talking about, blitzing when you least expect it at the end of every quarter, and then they throw extra guys at offensive rebounds just to make sure the possession ends with their rebounding. They're very well coached as a team. But this is, I think, part of the problem with you sign Tyus Jones, and you should. You should do that. This is not where the mistakes begin with this team, I think. But you're getting smaller at the guard position, and you didn't get bigger anywhere else, right? It's sort of a size equation across the board on the Suns roster, and it just got smaller with the guys that you have to play. Because in order to sign Tyus, you had to tell him he could start. Like, we all know that was part of it because it was in the immediate press release that Tyus Jones put out when he signed. I'm excited to start on this team. Fair. You have to convince him of that. Fair. That's what it takes to improve the roster's overall talent. Fine. You have to find a way to get bigger somewhere else to counteract just how small you get at that position, because there's a reason I think that they work so well with KD. He's 7 feet tall and he plays the power forward position for this team. He makes up for a lot of that. Tyus needs KD. Defensively, we talked a lot about the defense. Devin Booker's defense has dropped, I think, the last 2 seasons. We're getting 2 seasons in a row where it's not great defense from Devin Booker, I think, so far. And Tyus is worse. He's kind of a worse defender. I think he's attacked over and over again. And when there's help there, it's probably fine. When there's
occasional steal that he can turn into a transition bucket, but that's it. That's about all you can say.
He's just too small. You can't teach size. So there's nothing really he can do about that. So, look, they have levers to pull. They have things they know, right? They drafted Toumani Camara. They drafted Ryan Dunn. We know that they understand, and they did with what they could do in the offseason, and I think they made a lot of the right decisions, but there's still problems with this roster that just really stand out when KD's not playing. When KD does play, he plays like 40 minutes a game too, because they know this is a problem.
Yes. Yep. So would you do anything different if you're Bud? It sounds like you're also not blaming Bud.
I'm not. No, I'm really
I think there's
not.
one. I mean, similar to how last year Frank Vogel's problem was like begging them to shoot threes and they just wouldn't do it. The version, they are shooting threes, so like credit to Bud for that. But the version of that this year is begging them to play a little bit faster. And They're 20. I had it in front of me somewhere. They're 20-something in pace.
They're nowhere near the top half. Yeah, exactly.
What happened to part of that is what we're talking about, right? You can't get stops, then you can't turn that into transition offense. That's a huge part of it. But also, like, what happened to the first 5 games of the season where it felt like, we had this new energy about us. Tyus was a point guard, and kind of everyone understood that this is the mission of the offensive system. They've gotten so far away from that, and I don't know how to get it back, but like, if Bud can somehow get through their heads that they need to play faster, because if you're this small and you're not playing fast, you're allowing defenses to get set, you just don't stand a chance. You don't. They need to be playing fast.
Here's, I think, I agree with you, first of all, pace. But here's why I don't really blame Bud. We before we jumped into the defensive numbers, the real deep dive on the defense here, you mentioned there were times that it looked lethargic. I talked about lack of focus at times. That's happening right now currently under Bud. And that happened last year under Frank Vogel with a lot of the same players currently on the roster. That includes Devin Booker, right? That includes all of the role players. And honestly, we haven't seen enough of it. But
it's Josh Okogie's fault.
That included KD last year too,
That's
right?
our scapegoat.
And it hasn't happened when he's played this year much, outside that Nets game where they kind of lost it in that second half. But with KD, it hasn't happened as much. And look, I think it's a problem with Bradley Beal throughout his career. If we're being honest, that's something that's happened throughout Bradley Beal's career. But my question, I guess, on this is, the reason I can't blame Bud on this is Bud is a championship-winning coach that was brought into this team, and they're losing focus under him. Frank Vogel was a championship-winning coach that they brought onto this team, and they were losing focus under Frank Vogel. There has to be some question about what is the problem with the leadership of this team at some point. And I think I even bring it back even further. And I hate to throw this. I'm not trying not to be super hot takey with this, but I genuinely was thinking about this last week. Did they make a mistake not keeping Chris Paul? Now, Chris Paul, as a player, is not the same kind of player that he was when the Suns were at their peak. But in that 64-win season, in the season they went to the NBA Finals, they just did not have long stretches where they lost focus in the same ways, because Chris Paul does not let it happen. And I think there's even an element of he doesn't even let it happen when he's sitting on the bench, because he's out there. His leadership still matters when he's not playing games.
Yeah. I mean, they're trying to, like, we've made the joke a million times about how they've tried to replace him in the aggregate, right? I think Tyus is getting as close as you possibly can in approximating what Chris does on the court. Like the 38-year-old version of Chris, not the 34-year-old version.
And we're talking like numbers-wise.
Yeah. Well, and I also think,
but
I
not
also think
mentally. Yeah.
Well, I also think, like, mentally, in terms of personal accountability, I think Tyus Jones is one of the smartest players in the league. I hang on to every word he says when he's interviewed, because I think he's a really smart guy.
That's true.
But
he doesn't have any scoring juice, though.
Here's the but to where you can see I'm agreeing with you too. He's not going to hold other guys accountable. That's not his place. That's not,
And even if he tries, it's not the same as the. Well, first of all, congratulations to Chris Paul. The second most assist getter in the history of the NBA is where Chris Paul is at now, currently.
Yeah, look, ultimately, I appreciate everything Chris did for this team. I still enjoy watching him. Shout out to him being second all time or whatever. But like, we also got to remember the other factors that made that 64-win Suns team successful, like having a Mikal Bridges, who is exactly what you're talking about, size on the wing, that was available
every single game.
Every single game. It was never a worry about, is KD going to play? And obviously KD is so much better than Mikal, so I'm not interested in relitigating that trade. It's, we don't have the bandwidth for that today, folks. But the fact that Mikal was always there, and the fact that DeAndre Ayton, who I was always super frustrated with, but was a guaranteed bucket if he caught it at the rim, among the best finishers in the NBA, and we just don't have those things anymore. Those little things KD on the margins.
Play. Right.
That were easy to take for granted at the time, but just to show that it's more than just the absence of Chris that's hurting this team right now. There are a lot of things that team 2 or 3 years ago did right.
Are we sure that Bradley Beal brings enough to make it worth that trade, though?
No, I mean, Brad frustrates the hell out of me all the time, because you can watch him literally to this day. He plays with his food.
Let's just say, for example,
I forget which game it was, Mike, but one of the games this week, and maybe you can remember, because I watched them in such quick succession trying to catch up. They were up by like 7 points. Brad scored, and he's like emoting on them, going back on defense, and then then they give up a transition bucket. It's like a blown coverage, easy layup. And it's like he celebrates way too early.
He's doing Fortnite dances out there.
He's doing Fortnite. I mean, not literally. He wasn't literally doing that, but like he is so unserious sometimes. To the point of it's just really hard to take them overall seriously as a competitor when he's doing stuff like that.
And look, Kevin Durant can do a lot when he's playing, and I think just the fact that he can just go, give me the effing ball and I'll score it now that we're sucking, has probably been the biggest difference, I think, between winning games and losing games so far this season. But Chris Paul was the same way. It wasn't always I'll score, but it was give me the ball. I understand what they're going to do defensively, and we're going to get a good shot out of it. And, just having that or saying, hey, this is what they're on the court. He's telling someone, this is what they're doing offensively. If you jump to this spot on the floor, you might be able to get a steal. He's that level of genius. He's a coach on the floor. We saw, hate to do him like this, but we saw Monty Williams without him in Detroit. Chris made a difference. Like he made a tangible difference. And look, this is all. We're just at the point of the podcast. What are we, 40 minutes in or something?
This is
all
helpful.
Theoretical talk.
To be fair, like this, what you're saying right now, even if you're right, and I'm only like 30% in agreement with you, to be honest, it's not helpful. We need answers right now.
You're right.
And then thinking about what the team was 3 or 4 years ago does not solve our issues of what do we do today. And that doesn't just
second in the NBA in assists
Chris
now, and I just wanted to have a chance to appreciate him in my own special kind of way. I think.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It was a special era in Suns history. I don't know if you saw the video, but they had a lot of Chris's former teammates congratulating him on moving to second place. Did you see that?
I didn't see that one. I did see the plaque they gave him. They
gave him a plaque,
on the Suns,
and then they asked a bunch of his former teammates, and with each one of them, obviously it said their name because some of them were random. It would be like, here's Devin Booker, who caught 100 assists from Chris Paul or whatever, and then it would be like, here's Jarrett Jack or Jeremy Pargo or Gennaro whichever one played with him. It would be like weird. But they had Book in there. They had Shea in there. They had Blake Griffin in there with, I think it said he had like 1,500 assists or 1,100 assists or something of Chris's. They had DeAndre Jordan. It was good to see Book participating in that. They had all the big names. Just kind of cool to see how many players, how many arcs Chris has affected throughout his career. But at the same time, to reiterate what I was saying, we are done with Chris. And we need to figure out a way to survive without him.
Let's talk about December 15th. December 15th is a day that 85 new NBA players will become trade eligible due to just the rules with signing players. So these are players that recently signed contracts on their teams, now become trade eligible as of December 15th. I'll start with just mentioning the Suns players. Now, keep in mind, this is next Sunday. So the reason we bring up this date, and as often as we do this time of year, is because that's usually when we kind of kick off players can now be traded time. Now, most of the time, all of the trades are sort of pushed all the way up into that deadline, and it's in February. But if there was a deal that could have been worked out before now, that could happen as soon as December 15th. They could pull the trigger on that date. I don't think they will, but we should talk about it still. Tyus, Monte, Mason, Bol, Damian Lee are all going to be trade eligible as of that date. The players that signed extensions, I believe that is not until January 15th. So there's other players that become trade eligible as of January 15th, like Royce O'Neal and
Josh Okogie.
Josh Okogie,
right?
I believe.
That would be a huge one.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm going to bring up the list here. But I also looked at players that could be traded on other teams. Have you seen this list by any chance?
Nope, not at all. Excited to
so-
see who it is. I mean, it's mostly going to be players who signed a contract with a new team this summer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what it is. So it's not like a list of players that you're going to get overly excited
Well,
about.
I could think through it if you gave me a lot of time, but I'd rather just hear who your favorite names are.
Yeah, it's not a long list. Let me bring it up here.
It's just Dorian Finney-Smith 15 times. No,
I mean, he could be traded already. So that's not even... Royce O'Neal can be traded. I thought so, and I wanted
Okay.
to double check. So Royce O'Neal can be traded based on whatever was the deal with his contract. Oh, because he was an unrestricted free agent, if I'm not mistaken. That's probably why. It wasn't an extension with him. Let's see. Jonas Valanciunas, step one. Right?
Oh, okay.
So
Cool.
Jonas can be traded as of Sunday. Sadiq Bey, who's another player on the Washington Wizards that can be traded. So if you wanted to, for example, make a trade with Yusuf Nurkic to the Washington Wizards, you could potentially create a trade where you get both Jonas and Sadiq Bey.
That fits in the
Jonas-
salary? What's Sadiq
It
making?
does. Like, 6 point something million, something like that. It's just right under that.
I'd
So
do
that
that.
is-
I would do that on December 15th, and I wouldn't look back. I wouldn't think about it.
Sadiq Bey, not very good anymore. I'm going to be honest with anyone who wants to look up his stats, but he's also big. So, maybe he can find a way to play some minutes when Kevin Durant's not playing, and maybe he can find a way to be unlocked on a team with better players around him and maybe taking better, more open shots, for example.
Yeah.
Jalen Smith.
Sadiq Bey. Wait, Sadiq Bey has a knee injury right now, so he hasn't played this season.
Oh, there you go.
That's what it is. So what is his injury? Is that an ACL or something?
I think it is, actually. So we'll see if he even plays this season. But that would be that's a reason you could potentially use Yusuf Nurkic to trade for him.
torn ACL. Okay.
Yeah.
He might be back sometime this season, according to this random article.
Yeah, I think that was right. I think I
So
remember
maybe
reading
there's
it.
someone else.
Didn't even
they
look
could
up
get
his
on that
stats.
roster.
Just knew he wasn't a huge fan of him towards the end of last year.
Last year he was bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But Jonas could start for the Suns and I think be a better player than Nurkic tomorrow. Yeah, maybe Nurkic will find a way to become better than that again if he's fully healthy and plays a little bit better, but Jonas is a better scorer. So at the very least, you have someone you could dump it to by the basket that could potentially hit a layup. I got to mention him just because he's on the list. Chris Paul is trade eligible.
Okay.
Just throwing it out there.
They're not trading Chris Paul.
Given Tyus Jones, maybe you can get Chris Paul back. You'd have
I-
to figure out a way to send more salary there.
I don't
know.
even want that. Tyus has been honestly, man, really like leadership.
I disagree with that.
Really good. Tyus has been
but-
good.
And there's the list gets really dark from there. There's really not I wrote
Okay.
down Taj Gibson, for example.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's how
What is
dark
wrong-
it gets after
What
that.
is wrong with you?
It's just not good. And Taj
there
Gibson
any other-
is a player that's a little bit longer that plays defense.
Are there any other bigs on the list?
Not really. Like okay, so Mo Wagner's on the list, for
Oh.
example. Andre
They're
Drummond's
not
on
going
the
to
list.
trade Mo when
Yeah,
Franz
so-
is on the team.
Yeah, so there are like Kevin Love is on the list. Thomas Bryant's on the list. There are players that are on the list. Mo Bamba, he doesn't play much actually for the Clippers. So there are players of size that are on the list that I just don't think are going to be moved. So I didn't even include them. I don't think they're really worth talking about. It's 85 players, so the list is relatively long. But it's like a lot of guys that are minimum, like Alex Len types of guys, Charles Bassey,
Yeah, I mean, people need to remember
Bruno
too,
Fernando.
The reason why did you say Alex Len?
Yeah.
Man, shout out Alex Len. How is he still doing it?
Keeps playing too, yeah.
The relevance of December 15th is as much like, these guys are now available to be salary filler as it is these guys are available to be prime targets, right? So it's a relevant date because a third of the league or a fourth of the league, whatever it is now just, can be swapped as kind of like the afterthought that completes a trade with, as we all know, with where the CBA is today, becomes harder and harder, and that's why these players are necessary. But how many of them are actually going to be targets? You told me Valanciunas. I like Valanciunas. Other than him, I'm not sure any of those names speak to me.
Everyone under multi-year deals are still trade eligible too, right? So right now, basically almost all of the NBA is now trade eligible. There are players that signed massive extensions. Like Josh Okogie is an example of a player due to whatever it is with his contract that is not currently trade eligible. And there's like other guys like Derek White, Jason Tatum, Miles Bridges, Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell that signed these big contracts that are not trade eligible right now. Either these guys are not likely not going to be traded, but the rest of the NBA is on that list right now outside of a few other guys that could potentially, like Wendell Carter Jr. can't be traded yet. Zubats can't be traded yet. Okogie, like I mentioned. A few other guys, but there is a time now where you can look at the NBA, you can look at a trade machine that actually factors in the rules, and there's going to be a couple other guys that you could put into that trade machine to see what's eligible. I think the Suns' best chances of trying to find something that maybe wouldn't have been on the table before is trying to get in on a trade that somebody else is making and find ways to make something out of that. So, for example, if Brandon Ingram gets traded over the next few weeks, find a way to get in on that and see if they can get somebody out of it to make it a little bit better. If New Orleans starts trading Brandon Ingram, I can't imagine they're going to try to be great. But, maybe there's other players on other teams that are older that are coming back to them that they don't want.
Here's my favorite example of that. If Chicago is somehow successful at trading Zach LaVine, which they've tried to do for, I don't know, however many years, or at least should have done for however many years, what will James Jones be doing to get Torrey Craig as part of that deal?
Yeah, that could happen. So I don't know if you want to, if you're listening to this and you want to go on the trade machine, I love to see those fake trades. I think we've seen some kind of interesting ones.
It's interesting to me. You gave a lot of appreciation to Chris Paul in this episode.
Yeah.
But we didn't. That was the first time, just as a joke, that I mentioned Torrey Craig. What would you do for Torrey Craig right now?
I would take Torrey Craig for sure.
How many
minutes? Is he playing well? I don't even know.
He's played 6 games this season. I frankly do not know if that's because of injury or just
I'll see
because
if there's anything in there. Yeah,
I don't know. Last year, he played 53 games for Chicago, 43% from the field, 39 from deep. We remember he has become a much better three-point shooter over time, and I think that was present in his second stint with Phoenix. And we know he's a good rebounder. We know he's a fine defender.
He's big.
But he's big.
So like the guys
mostly I just think like it would be hilarious if they did it again.
It seems like they're DNPs.
Yeah, guess he's just not playing.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Who's playing over him? I guess it's Pat Williams. I don't know. I would take him though. Yeah, sure. Why not? Would he play a lot? Probably not. But there are times where they need bodies, and he might be one of them that could actually get on the floor. I put Taj Gibson on the list, so we know where I'm at mentally. I'm just trying to find guys who could potentially play when nobody's available. You put Taj Gibson in there to guard someone because nobody else can. Can he still do it? Probably not very often, but occasionally for a 5-minute stretch in a game, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. It's not a great look to be here, but hey, there's a break in the schedule, and we'll just talk about this before we end this episode here. Switch off to something else other than all the depressing stuff about the Suns. Although I do appreciate having conversations like this. I think there's not a lot of people that look forward to listening to episodes like this, but I do think we get to interesting conclusions on them. So shout out to those of you who are still listening right now at this point of the episode. The NBA Cup, the official bracket is out. I don't know. Do we care? Do you care? There's a break in the schedule because of this, so like it's kind of interesting.
I'm gonna watch. Yeah,
I was very aware of it because of that break in the schedule.
So quarterfinals start tomorrow. Tomorrow being Tuesday, we're recording this late Monday night, and so the quarterfinal games are going to be Tuesday and Wednesday. Like I said, I'm in finals week, but I'm most of the way through it now, so I am planning on watching those games, and I think it helps to just have nothing on except those games, right? Just have a slate of a couple games makes it feel a little bit more like a playoff atmosphere. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm going to watch every game of the NBA Cup, but how many are there going to be? Like 6 or 7? I'll try and hit at least a few of them for sure.
And I actually think the West games are kind of awesome. So, like the West, it's the Thunder versus the Mavericks, and the Rockets versus the Warriors.
Yeah, those are big games against playoff teams.
Big games against playoff teams who match up against each other, I think, relatively well, in a way that makes them interesting. Like the Mavericks beat the Thunder in the playoffs last year. The Rockets are playing out of their mind well so far this year and have a ton of defenders to throw at the Warriors, who have been slipping a little bit lately, but Steph, just in the last game they played, looks like MVP Steph and can do that at times and relishes the spotlight against teams like that. The East, I think, is slightly less interesting just because the Magic are one of the teams here. Although if they make a run, that becomes interesting. But it's Bucks, Magic, and Knicks Hawks. Knicks Hawks, of course, have a history. So Trae Young, that's watchable by itself, right? Just Trae Young versus the Knicks with a slightly brighter light on it.
The Hawks are also a really fun and confusing team this year. I mean,
dude, Jalen Johnson rocks. I've watched more of the Hawks. He's pretty awesome.
And Dyson Daniels rocks too. Right?
Yeah,
they are. I mean, they beat, this was a couple weeks ago now, but they beat the Cavs back to back. They were the team that took the Cavs. They were like 17-1.
Cavs lost 4 in a row. Yeah.
And then, but what started that, they were 17-1. Then they lost 2 straight to Atlanta. And now I'm looking at Atlanta's game log here. They just beat the Bucks. They beat the Lakers in overtime. They just got destroyed by Denver by 30. That was their most recent game. But so, they're bipolar, but
Denver's a weird matchup for teams too. It's
I'll pull for
not
Atlanta.
being good against Denver is a thing that will happen to teams. We'll see what the Suns have 2 games back to back against Denver, by the way.
This is a thing where, not that any of it really matters, but if Golden State or Dallas wins this thing, then I don't like that, right? That sucks. So I'm going to pull for a team, and the Knicks, I actually do like the Knicks, but I'm going to pull for a team like Atlanta to win this.
Yeah, Atlanta, or the Magic would be fun, right? If Jalen Suggs has a throwback to his college days and carries a team through a single game elimination tournament. Can't even say that word. It's been a long day for me. That would also be fun. Jalen Suggs, who was awesome against the Suns and frustratingly awesome in the way that I started to hate him by the end of that game. But can be a guy who at times can pick up the slack offensively, just can't shoot for the course of a season.
Something we didn't even really mention. I mean, just the level of I guess we did mention it, kind of in a bigger sense of how the team reacts to it, but the level of physicality in these past 2 games for the Suns with both the Magic and the Heat was crazy, and they were getting screwed on a bunch of there were a bunch of blatant fouls that you could tell were just frustrating the hell out of the Suns. But I think EJ and K-Ray spoke to it on the broadcast. With the Magic, they get extra leeway because that's just their reputation now. They're the scrappy defensive team who gets to foul you a little bit more than the average team. Yeah, because for whatever reason they've earned that reputation.
They have guys who are good at that. Yeah,
they do.
It is a skill thing. Weirdly,
we'll see how long it takes. I think it's the type of team where right now everyone's rooting for them because they haven't won anything yet, and it's just fun to root for teams like that. If they start dominating the Eastern Conference one day, once Paolo and Franz come back, a lot of people eventually are going to turn on them. But that's just how it works. And you know what? I think I'll continue to root for the Magic because we only play them twice a year. And they're not in my conference, so I wouldn't really have to worry about it. Unless the Suns make the finals. How are we feeling about that these days?
Less good. We'll see. KD has made that much of a difference as far as the actual wins go. When you look at we can have that conversation later when he's back, but even when you look at some of the other stats when KD's playing, they should be better than they have been in those games as well. But we'll see what they can do about it, and maybe they'll make a trade next week, and we can talk about that. A weird break in the schedule. I mentioned it earlier. Not another game until Thursday, I believe.
Friday.
Against Utah, so thank you.
Sunday against Portland. We have not made any decisions, by the way, but just keep your eyes peeled. We'll announce if there's going to be a playback or something like that later in the week, right? So,
but we're going to have to do a Patreon episode. So, by the way, if anyone listening to this has an idea of what you want to hear us talk about in that Patreon episode, weird breaking the schedule, or maybe we can come up with a guest or something for that one. But you can sign up at patreon.com/thetimeline. Code OSOGOOD to get 80% off. I think 80% off the first month. Very cheap first month. OSOGOOD. No spaces. Check it out. And we appreciate everyone for listening. We'll be back very soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to JohnnyWalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.